Hey, welcome to the NRL Round 12 NRL Betting Trend Report. My name is Reese, and in this video, every single week, I go through all the upcoming games for the weekend, go through what the odds are, what the odds were last time these sides met. As you can see here, their past 5 meetings, who won, who covered, what the total was, whether their games have been going over or under, and all the betting trends for that specific matchup, and also go through my early betting thoughts for each one of these games and what I'm leaning towards doing later in the week. Before we get into this weekend's games, though, I just want to quickly recap last weekend, which was Magic Round. So every game played in Brisbane at Suncorp Stadium. Interestingly, 6 of the 8 games were decided by 8 points or less. And what's even crazier is even though a lot of the teams who were officially the home team are all non-Queensland teams and also non-Brisbane teams especially, of those, 7 of the 8 home teams covered the spread in their games. So that's really pushed the home teams covering right up. As you can see here, home sides have now covered 50 of the 88 games played so far this season. So that's a really big advantage. Home teams have also been winning a lot of games, winning 54 games so far with the draw in there. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Away favorites are the one that have been really struggling, only covering 12 of 27 games in that situation. We come back over to the results, though. Some other things that happened last week. Underdogs covered 6 of the 8 games. The only 2 favorites who covered were the Melbourne Storm with the blowout win against the Eels, and the Dolphins covered against the West Tigers. That line really pushed up late. Early in the week was -8.5 for the Dolphins, pushed right up to the 11.5. So they did just cover it. Then from an over-under perspective, I'll just quickly also on the underdogs, 3 underdogs won outright. Firstly, the Raiders beating the Bulldogs, then the Sharks beating the Roosters as an underdog, and the Warriors beating the Panthers. And from a total points betting perspective, we've had another round. So that's 3 in a row now where 4 games went over the total, 4 games went under. This round, it could have almost been 6-2 to the over. The 2 games that fell half a point short. Those 2 games were the Rabbitohs Cowboys. The total was 50.5, landed on 50. And the Warriors Panthers game, the final total was 42.5, so fell half a point short. It was a game where you could have middled it though. The early total was 40.5 and moved up to 42.5. So you could have taken the over 40.5 and then the under 42.5, and you would have hit both sides in that game. Now, looking ahead to this weekend's game, because I know that's what you guys are here for, but obviously it's always important to look back on what has been happening in previous matches, like we do in these. So, opening game is the Bulldogs versus Dragons game. Not really a game you can get all that excited about to kick off the round. We've had some good early matches. This definitely isn't really one of them. Bulldogs, the small favorites, -3.5. They won the latest matchup in the middle of last season against the Dragons, 18 points to 16. The Bulldogs were 6.5-point underdogs that time. So lines moved around quite a bit. The Dragons come into this off a bye, which means they're going to be well rested and looking for a win. Bulldogs, really took advantage of a period in the game against the Raiders last week where the Raiders were down a man in the sin bin. That was where they kind of caught up and overtook. But when it was 13 aside, the Raiders really dominated that game. So that is concerning for the Bulldogs. Both these sides are very even in attack. They're both just outside top 8 sides in most attacking categories, but very, very even. Defensively as well, there's a bit of difference between the 2 sides. Bulldogs a much better defensive side than the Dragons. So I think they're deserving to be favorite. My number is -3 for the Bulldogs. So I think the line's pretty much spot on. And from a total perspective, 6 of the past 9 head-to-head have gone over. Total's 1 point lower than it was last time that they met. My total for this game is 40, so it's only half a point off. So how I'm looking at playing this game, I think the odds are fairly spot on, but I think it's going to be a close game. I think Bulldogs kind of win by 2 to 6 points in that range. So I'm looking at either side to win by 1 to 10 or Bulldogs 1 to 12 as my potential plays, but definitely leaning towards the try bet of either side 1 to 10. Early game on Friday, Cowboys versus the Tigers. Cowboys big favorites, minus 10.5. Late last season, they won 74-0 against the Tigers, turning around the match from 6 weeks earlier where the Tigers won 66-18. Couple of big blowouts there in their matches last season. Doubt we're going to see something of that scoreline in this matchup. But now the last four have all gone over the total. This is a matchup where I've had it circled for a few weeks. Looking at an overplay here, because if we come back over to the total points records so far this season, you'll notice the Tigers are now all 10 games have gone under the total. The Cowboys are 8-3 to the over. And this was a game I really had circled as a backing it over because a lot of the time, like that total's got to come down for the Tigers, but they've set this at 48.5, which is pretty high. I was looking for a 45.5. Haven't decided whether I'm willing to take the 48.5. Definitely is a little bit too high. But in good conditions, just the early evening game, I think is a little bit better and more favorable for a high scoring matchup. So considering the over, it's just a very high number for a Tiger side who so far this season are only averaging 15 points a game. I think Cowboys win, but there's no real value in a minus 10.5 line either. Tigers forced to make a couple of changes in the centers, which doesn't help their scoring either. And that makes it also tricky taking the over. But 6 of the past 7 between these two sides have gone over. See if the number can come down a little bit. But just waiting to see on that game, but definitely looking for an overplay. Seagulls versus Storm. This is a good matchup. Storm going to be without Cam Munster. Jerome Hughes expected to return, however, isn't definite. But I expect he does play if Munster with Munster out, but it's obviously not official. So with that in mind, I don't want to make any early bets on this game until official lineups are out, which generally doesn't happen until about an hour before the game. The home side has won and covered the past 5 in this matchup. That's a really good advantage for the Seagulls. Melbourne are the better team statistically wise in both attack and defense. Top 4 side in both of those categories. Manly kind of mid-pack and they're not that great defensively. Definitely have a few key areas to improve. First half is going to be key. Manly are one of the worst defensive sides in the first half. But this is a game they'll step up for. They were good against the Broncos last week. Storm, obviously, very good against Eels, who are struggling. How I'm looking at playing this game is potentially taking the under 42.5. I'd like a slightly higher number, as always. But we'll just kind of see what it does here, especially with the news around Jerome Hughes. If he does line up, if he is out, then the under is definitely a bet in this game. I think that really removes the disadvantage the Seagulls have defensively if the Storm are without their 2 halves. But obviously, we won't know until lineups are out. Raiders versus the Roosters. Roosters big favorites here, minus 10.5 total at 43.5. 10 of the past 15 between these two sides have gone under the total points line. The number's the same as it was last time they met in round 17 last season, where the Raiders were small winners, winning by 2 points. Canberra have now won the past 2 against the Roosters, but the Roosters won the 2 games prior to that. Canberra have won the past 2 as an underdog against the Roosters. So they're now $4 for this game. Roosters should be too good. They'll be keen to bounce back off their loss last week against the Sharks. I think the Roosters do get over the line. Canberra really haven't been as bad as a lot of people expected them to be this season. They were good enough last week against the Bulldogs to get the win and probably should have won by more, but thankfully they didn't because we had either side to win by 1-10. So it worked out good in that category, but they really should have won by more. And I do think there are a chance of keeping this close-ish against the Roosters, but I think the Roosters run out winners. With the line of 10.5, I don't think Canberra win the game, so I'm also looking towards a Roosters 1-12 in this matchup, as long as Canberra can hold form. But I think them being at home here is a significant advantage. The away team has performed well, covering 8 of the past 10 in this matchup, but Roosters 10.5 point favorites. I think that line is just slightly too big. And the Raiders are a chance of keeping this one close, but I don't think they can get the win. Game of the round, Sharks versus Panthers. Sharks, small favorites here, minus 2.5, which is very interesting. Last time they met, round 22 last season, Penrith was 16.5 point favorites. This line's spun around 18 points from their last meeting. Nathan Cleary is still out for the Panthers, which that obviously gives Sharks a big advantage. especially with the way Nico Hines is playing. Sharks definitely a chance winning this game. I think they're a little bit too short though, even at home. We've made good money out of the Sharks the past 2 weeks and kind of all season, really. But we've been able to hit them against the Storm and also against the Roosters, both as underdogs over the past 2 weeks. They're back at home now after 2 weeks on the road. I think they're definitely a good chance to win this game. I just don't think there's any value in their price. We'll see if any money comes for the Panthers during the weekend, pushes the Sharks price up to that $1.80, $1.85 mark, and that potentially may get me interested in it. But as I said, we have made the money out of the Sharks. It's not necessarily a game that I want to get too heavily involved in, especially early on in the season. These are two of the sides, two of pretty much the four sides that'll be, fighting out the premiership this season. And, both sides probably don't want to show too much of their hand at this early part of the season. Home team has performed well. Sharks won their last home matchup against the Panthers, 19 points to 18. That was their only win in the past 7 against the Panthers. Total at 39.5 is very, very low. The past 3 have all gone under, but we was getting totals in the mid 40s in that situation. So down to under the 40 mark, definitely is low. So I'm just staying away from that. Both top 2 defensive sides, Panthers #1 defensive side, Sharks #2 defensive side. So I can understand, why that total is that number, but doesn't mean I want to back it by any means. Rabbitohs versus Eels. This is another really, really ugly game. Both sides in desperate need of a win. Eels come up small favorites, -2.5. The Rabbitohs have won and covered 6 of the past 7 against Parramatta. The Eels won the last matchup in round 12 last season as 9.5-point underdogs. I really don't care to back either side in this game. I'm happy to stay away from a side perspective. Definitely am interested in the over. 47.5 is fairly big number. I'll check what I have this number at. I have it at 46. But 8 of the past 10 head-to-head have gone over. These sides have historically met in high-scoring games. Both sides terrible defensively. They are the worst 2 defensive sides in the competition. Rabbitohs conceding almost 35 points a game. Eels conceding 29 points a game. Neither side really have the attack to take advantage, but both sides is letting teams run straight over the top of them. They're also ranked worst in line breaks conceded. Eels conceding almost 7 line breaks a game, and the Rabbitohs conceding just over 6 line breaks a game. I feel like, if they can just somewhat get their attack going both sides, this score could really run up. So I'm definitely interested in the over in the Rabbitohs Eels game, but not touching a side. Broncos versus Titans. Broncos big favorites here, -12.5. Question marks on Reece Walsh I saw this morning. So whether he lines up may obviously bring the odds down if he is ruled out. 10 of the past 15 head-to-head have gone over the total points line. Total at 48.5. They definitely have cranked these totals up a couple of points from what you would expect to see. So I am a little bit worried taking too many overs in this round because I have this number at 45.5 and it's set at 48.5. Titans numbers have been improving week on week, and Broncos do match up better in every category though. So obviously Broncos deserving to be favorites. I think 12.5 is slightly too high. When they met in round 17 last season, the Titans actually got the win as 12.5-point underdogs. That'll give them that bit of belief that there is a chance they can win this game. I think the Broncos should be too good though. Interested in the over. Also interested in the Broncos line for the first half. I think Broncos may be able to get the jump here on the Titans early on. And if we can get a line around like the -5.5 for the first half, then I'd be definitely interested in that. And then final game of the round, Warriors versus Dolphins. The Dolphins, small favorites here, not much between them. Our game was very, very close to a pick'em. They had 2 meetings last season. The home side won and covered both matchups, and both games went under the total points line. This is the lowest total between these two sides at 42.5. The game in New Zealand last season, the total was 44.5. This is a game I'm definitely happy to back the Dolphins to win, even though they're on the road traveling over to New Zealand. They've definitely been the better side over the past 5 to 6 weeks. I think a little bit too much is being made of the Warriors win over against Penrith Suncorp last weekend. They won by 2 points, but it was a little bit of a grind. They ran over Penrith late. Penrith obviously undermanned at the moment. Think Dolphins are a good bet in this situation. So most likely we'll be backing them in the final game of the round. So to quickly summarize, and then make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on so you get the videos later in the week. Bulldogs, Dragons leading either side 1-10. Cowboys, Tigers interested in the over there, but want a slightly lower number. Seagulls versus Storm. We have to wait for final lineups for that matchup. Raiders versus Roosters. Probably not a game I want to get too heavily involved in, but leaning Roosters 1-12. Sharks, Panthers. I want to see a little bit of a drift on the Sharks just because I think they're a touch too short right now, and we've made our money out of them the past first half of this season so far. Rabbitohs, Eels, another game interested in the over. Broncos, Titans, looking for a first half line under a converted try there for the Broncos and leaning towards the Dolphins in the last game of the round. That's how I'm looking at approaching this weekend's game. If you want to access all the tools and research databases that I have for the NRL, so the bet finders, all the player trends, all that stuff for these games, go to the link in the bio. I put it there for the NRL bet finders, so you can access this and use it to study the games. You get the bet finders of every team, and then there's try scoring trends for every game. And keep an eye out for more videos coming soon to help you guys make more money betting on the NRL.